Hello everyone. Hi Daniel, and welcome to our online event litafrika in Brazil as part of the exhibition litafrika Artistic Encounters, curated by Zukiswa Wanner in cooperation with Litar Foundation and Museum Strauhof, and which is currently at display at Strauhof in Zurich, Switzerland. My name is Nicole Schmidt and I'm part of the litafrika team. And the project litafrika is a 3-year exhibition project, which is funded by Pro Helvetia. And Artistic Encounters is its second exhibition and stages, in a nutshell, 8 artistic encounters between contemporary authors, musicians, actors, and visual artists from English, French, and Portuguese-speaking Africa, and thus crosses national and linguistic borders. We were therefore very excited when Zukiswa suggested to cross even more continental and linguistic borders and to cooperate with the multilingual online journal Periferias, based in Brazil, which promotes exchange between the Global Peripheries and publishes editions in the 3 already mentioned languages and also in Spanish. Editor Daniel Martins is now joining us from Rio de Janeiro and will give a presentation on the Periferias project, as well as the special litafrika issue edited by Zukiswa Wanner to coincide with the exhibition opening of Artistic Encounters in June. Before we start, I would kindly like to remind you to switch off your mics and video functions during the talk to facilitate a stable connection. At the end, you're more than welcome to switch them back on and ask questions. So Daniel, thank you for joining, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm really happy to be here and to share this moment with you all. And we as a team and Maria and João Aleixo Institute, where we are based in, where our publishing house Periferias is based in, we're really happy. I hope some of my colleagues are also watching us, and I can't start without contextualizing what Periferias is. What this journal is, but more broadly, what this publishing house with the same name is. We are based, Nicole and everyone, we are based in the Maré Favelas, which is the largest set of favelas from Rio de Janeiro. So it's a compound made of 16 favelas with more than 140,000 inhabitants. So Maré has a population which is larger than 96% of Brazilian towns. So we are actually in a neighborhood that has a population of a city in the north zone of Rio de Janeiro. And for those who know and for those who do not know Rio de Janeiro, I think I can share one perspective that I heard from a Portuguese journalist once, Herausgeber Martins. She was correspondent from O Público, a very interesting newspaper from Portugal. And she lived in Maracanã, where she studied her PhD at UERJ. And she said once, Rio de Janeiro, beauty and tragedy, all at the same time. So I think this speaks a lot about the city where we are in, and as we are based in the Maré Favelas, it also speaks about this publishing house. So the beauty Alexandre mentions, it's known worldwide, but also the tragedy must be known. And the tragedy we are speaking about when we talk about Rio, and more broadly when we talk about Brazil, is the extreme, unequal and racist society this country is founded on. But this is evident once you come to Rio. I'm sure there are many other cities in Brazil where inequality can be hidden, but not in Rio. So this makes this city unique. This was the second capital of Brazil, and and I think in the 60s, the capital became Brasilia. So the city carries a importance which is well known. And when we decided to found a publishing house based in a favela, in the largest favela of Rio de Janeiro, we had a very clear purpose in mind, which was to not only to have a publishing house from the favelas, because we were far from being the first one, but we wanted to be in very important places of discussion, of propositions, and why not of power. So this was the fundamental principle for us to found Peripheries Journal in 2017. At that time, Brazil was living a very hard moment. In 2016, there was a coup d'etat, and we lost power to the right government. And at the same time, we were creating a new organization based in the favelas, inserted in the civil society organizations from Rio de Janeiro. And we could only do that because there were two other founder organizations in this process, and they are the Favelas Observatory and Herausgeber da Maré. The first one works with public policies and propositions to the city of Rio and why not to Brazil. And Herausgeber da Maré works with territorial development. These organizations have more than 20 years of work, not only in Maré, but in the city of Rio. In 2003, the Favelas Observatory was already defending the implementation of affirmative policies for Black and Indigenous people to enter university. And now, 20 years later, we are discussing the renewal of affirmative policies in Brazil. And this is something we were part of 20 years ago. And these two organizations founded the Instituto Maria João Aleixo, founded the publishing house Periferias. And I joined the team in 2017 in October. And I was told by Jailson, who is the founder and former director of our organization. And he told me, and he tried to convince me, that we had to publish a journal, a magazine, in 6 languages. He wanted not only that we publish in Portuguese, which was something we were sure we could do, but he wanted us to publish in English, Spanish, French, Mandarin, and also Arabic. So first moment we said, wow, 6 languages is just too much. We're not familiar, we do not know any other platform that dares to publish in 4 languages like you're asking us to do. But then when we thought a little bit more, we saw we could publish not in 6 languages, but in 4. So we had expertise in translation, we had network, but at that time, we didn't have budget for translation. And I'm a translator myself, so we came up with this strategy for our first issue, which was published in 2018, called The Paradigm of Potency. And we published it in 4 languages, but we had no budget at all for any of the translations. But we disseminated an open call for volunteer translation at the time. And our largest challenge was to convince people to translate voluntarily to a platform that at that time didn't exist. So we had to, now it's kind of easier to convince people to participate, to show the importance of Periferias. Now it exists, now we have published 8 issues. But at that time we hadn't published any of these issues, so still this call for contribution, call for volunteer translation happened, and many joined us. And this was our very first beginning to launch Periferias. We had at that time interviewed Ayrton Krenak, who is one of the most prominent indigenous leadership from Brazil. And we knew we had to translate his interview. We had at that time came up with a very important, a fundamental text for us, which is the letter from Maré, a manifesto from the peripheries, which came out after an international seminar we held in March 2017 with leaders from organizations and from popular territories from more than 10 countries. So there were representatives from India, Bangladesh, Colombia, Argentina, Mexico, Panama, Guinea-Bissau, Angola, France, and the United States. So we joined efforts and we produced this material. This letter is a 4-page document and it states the principles of this organization. And by the time we published it, our first issue in 2018, we had translated the letter of Maré into 16 languages. And this was a huge achievement to us. I don't remember sending anyone this letter, of course, from this circle of people who share common interests and premises and projects for society. I can't remember anyone not liking, not wanting to participate somehow of Periferias. And then when we launched Periferias 1, the paradigm of potency, we wanted to make a point really clear. And this came out from our experience in the favelas. And we were sure at that time that there was a premise that can be shared worldwide. So the favelas is typically portrayed as first a place of violence, of extreme violence, and place of absence of care. But at the time, we were already sure that this is not the only perspective we can attribute, we can see once we look to the favelas and to the popular territories. There was rather another one, which was based on the inventive power from people of the favelas, on their bound in social life, to come up with strategies and means to find an equality. We were sure of that. And this was our premise to publishing Periferias 1. And we published it in 4 languages, so we were really excited. We had no budget for translation, but still we could publish an online version in 4 languages. And we were thrilling. But still at that time, Brazil was living a really hard moment. And 2018 was the year when Jair Bolsonaro was elected, so you can imagine how the atmosphere was for us. But we were sure this debate of the importance of democracy was going to be not only more important, but would be in a hard moment. So we launched it in November 2018, Democracy and the Peripheries. At that same year, there was the assassination of Marielle Franco. She was killed by militia groups from Rio, so she had a very strong position against the militia groups in Rio. But more importantly, she was from Maré. And 1 week after she was murdered, there was a demonstration, not in Rio's downtown, not in Rio's center, not in the wealthiest zone of the city, but rather throughout Avenida Brasil, which is one of the most important venues of Rio. And the demonstration ended up in Maré, and this is our cover photo for issue 2, Democracy and Periphery. At that time, Bolsonaro had not won yet, but we knew it was clear to us he was going to win. So we were trying to prepare a ground for this 4 coming years. We're going to be really tough in this field of organizations from the favelas, organizations who fight for human rights. And we knew the challenge was real. And now when we look back, as we're living a really new phase for Brazil, as we believe, it's hard to understand how we dealt with so many challenges. And they continued in 2019 as we published Experience Alternatives of the Peripheries. We had one point really clear, and this is also a fundamental premise to us. We are not actually working with denouncing whichever and whatever challenges the peripheries have, and we're aware of them. We are aware of problems, and we're aware of the challenges there are in peripheral and the favelas in popular territories, not only Brazil, but worldwide. But yeah, we want to publish, or we want to address rather the alternatives, the strategies for overcoming these challenges, the strategies for finding means to overcoming unequal and racist conditions and societies like Brazilian is. So when I remember our issues, it always comes to my mind the cover image we chose. And I mentioned the one we chose for Periferias 2, which was this huge demonstration that happened in Brazil Avenue. And then on Peripheries 3, we published a cover image, which was a photo taken by Francisco Valdean, who's a very close friend to us, and he photoed the favela of Santa Marta in Rio, where we can see a family on their rooftop taking a bath. It was probably one of the heat days from Rio summer. The temperatures are above 40 degrees, and they were having a moment to relax. They were they managed to have a swimming pool for the kids. So this picture expresses a lot about how favelas inhabitants were finding their strategies to have at least a fundamental right, which is the right to leisure. Even though they were living in the top hill of one of the most traditional favelas of Rio, which is Dona Marta. So this picture symbolizes a lot. And at that same year, we published a very important photographic essay carried out by Bira Carvalho, which was a very important photographer, and he passed away in 2021. He needed a wheelchair to move around, and he was graduated, he was trained by the Popular School of Photography, which has last year started off their program for popular photography. And we have moved since then, considering photography, considering a lot of what popular territories had to say, a lot of what academics had to say regarding the challenges of unequal and racist societies like Brazilian and the world is. Because there was something really clear to us that not only we wanted to publish and to address themes proposed and discussed by people from the peripheries and from the favelas, but also we want to have an entrance on discussion of public policies. So this gives, I think, a fundamental tone for what Periferias is. We have always tried to mix genres and types of text. So from academic articles to essays, to photographic essays, to what we call narratives. And then there was a turning point after we published Periferias 4. We talk about public schools. And it was a very important issue because education and public school is always a fundamental point in the Brazilian discussion on politics. But we had a turning point which happened in Periferias 5. And this turning point came after we got closer to Zukiswa Wanner. I remember I saw her literary festival, I saw Afro Lit Sans Frontières, but I think a post from Monjack, and we got overwhelmed. We thought immediately that we had to somehow be part, we had to get closer to what was happening on that festival. We had to talk to the responsible of it. And then I first got the email of James Murua, who was involved and who is a friend of Zukiswa. And then he mailed to Zukiswa telling about Peripheries. And I remember 2 days later, we were having a 1 hour and a half conversation, and we were talking how we could make things happen. So this was a turning point for us, not only because we could expand a range of international publications, which was something we were aiming since our first beginning. And we were already publishing international authors, but for the first moment, we could have a straight entrance and discussions and primarily literature coming from African writers and African writers from the diaspora. So this was a point to us that was one of the most representative on our trajectory. I remember when I studied languages at the São Paulo University in 2010, there was an African literature course, but I remember they were only working with Miyakoto, and I don't have nothing against Miyakoto. I have many reasons to like him, but at that time, me, my friends and I, our colleagues, we felt that we also had many more reasons to get to know many of other African authors and African authors from the diaspora. And when I look back, I see how during this 13, 15 years, I'm sure the university is discussing African literature at another stage. And we are in a very close contact to African literature, and this makes me very proud to have access to that, but also to be part on how we can disseminate African literature and translate it into 4 languages. And this happened to be a very good challenge since Zukiswa joined on our issue 5 when we published it, Periferias 5, Public and Environmental Health. We have one point clear to us that we couldn't discuss public health at the moment of the pandemic without discussing environmental health and democratic health. So democracy was on stake at that time in Brazil, elsewhere. But Zukiswa joined it, and we could publish stories from extraordinary writers. And this was a turning point to us because as the pandemic came, also we were not sure about our existence as an organization. Because as we are in civil society, we live year per year. We're not sure about what's coming for the next years. So this is the reality of our organization from the civil society, financed by now government, but at that time, but private entities. But that gave us, I can remember this very clearly, that gave us a relief and a reason to believe that we could move away, rather publishing new experiences and publishing writers we were unfamiliar to, but Brazil was unfamiliar too. And this was a reason for us to believe in our work, and it was really a turning point. And I can remember really clearly how Zukiswa, how we had common interests, how we had a common premise, how we had a common project to share. And I'm sure this was the ground that enabled us to publish not only Peripheries 5, but Peripheries 6, Race, Racism, Territorial Institutions. And this issue, Zukiswa was our guest editor. And for us, for that we have a very, we're not a huge team. We are 3 now working on the publishing house. We have many translators, but we are essentially 3 people working. But we can remember that when Zukiswa joined in, things were much more possible because we have such a strong ally, such a strong confidence that we were always thinking how we can improve, how can we dispute the place not only of the discourse of narrative, how can we face and how can we dispute with hegemonic publishing houses from Brazil, because they are also looking for African literature, but we're not sure about what they're looking for, but we know what we are looking for. And we published it Peripheries 6. It was a huge success. At that time we published authors that would later be published by one of the hugest publishing houses from Brazil. And Zukiswa was enabled that. It was clear to us how she was super connected, how we could be connected to a network of people, of writers. It was unbelievably rich. And we were really glad. Because now when we look 2 years backwards, 3 years backwards, and we see what we have published, and we see where main publishing houses are trying to address, we see that we took a very first step. And we are not a conventional publishing house. We are based in the favelas. We are founded by 2 organizations from the favelas. We are founded by people from the favela, by Black people. And it is really important for me to place as myself, as one of the editors. I'm a white man, being one of the leaders of these editors, but still we are in a Black organization. We joke a lot that there is not a quota for Black people here, but there's rather a quota for white people. And I'm inside of this quota, and I'm really happy to be part of this quota. And I'm really satisfied to understand the purpose of this organization to exist as it exists. We founded a university based in the favelas, which is called Peripheries. We are carrying out a project with an English organization called MIDAC, Migration, Development and Inequality. We are working with the Haitian community in Brazil, and we are publishing Periferias 9 on the theme of access to rights in South-South migrations. So we are now getting to places that we couldn't imagine 3-4 years ago, that we as a publishing house based in the favelas, we couldn't imagine, but we knew. We were aiming too high. And things are not easy to speak. As we're speaking now, there's been a police operation happening in Maré, one of the many. And Rio can be, as we said, one of the most beautiful, undoubtedly, cities in the world, but it's also one of the most tragic ones. Police violence and violence committed by civil armed groups in Rio are in levels of countries who are clear in civil war. So, as we speak now, there's a police operation happening. As we daily work, there's violence being committed, especially committed by the state of Rio, especially committed by the police. And still, we want to move on. And with this publishing house, we move on where our arm can reach, which is publication, which is literature, which is solid and sound propositions for diverse themes, for what we call the global peripheries. We want to be a reference for this discussion. So this is why Periferias exist as not a journal, but I like how you presented Periferias, Nicole, as a multi-platform. And we want to move on. We want to publish more and more issues regarding regarding global peripheries. So there is one coming ahead in September. We are hosting an international meeting of migration researchers, and we are taking this opportunity to launch an edition on access to rights. So this is happening in September. So I'd like to hear from us. Nicole, what do you think we call our guests to participate?
Thank you so much for your insightful presentation and about Periferias and its impressive history and also vibrant place. I would now like to open up the discussion. If anyone has a question, you may ask them. I also received one question from Zukiswa, who watches via YouTube, so I could ask that question, or yeah, if anyone else wants to jump in first. Okay, I will just directly ask it. I will also post it on via chat. So Zukiswa would like to know, how do you see your contribution as Periferias in contributing to global South narratives, be it in the form of translations and essays or fiction?
Wow, very good question, Zukiswa. Not an easy question, but still a very good question. So we have, as we mentioned before, that we have one premise which is clear to us. We work not on the field of denouncing problems and challenges, but we want to address strategies and alternatives. And for the global South narratives, there's one premise which is clear. So those who are publishing, those who are speaking for, come from the global South. So this is one point. And a second one, they might be exposing challenges or problems, but they're proposing alternatives. And for Peripheries to be this platform, which experiences can be shared, which experiences can be read worldwide in 4 languages, this is a very representative indication of where our work is moving to. I wanted to share it, I forgot, but maybe you can share our access data since our first issue. And when we get to this point, I can see that we were being read almost everywhere in the world, not only in Greenland, but we are being read a lot. We are being read a lot. And all of these little countries are countries that access, so at some point accessed Periferias. There might be one country that one single person read Periferias, but still, it's something. And this is a very powerful indication of how we are working and how translation enables us to be this multilingual platform for sharing experiences and to be in this place of dispute for narratives. We have no point at all in hiding this premise. We are in the field of disputes, and we want, of course, to dispute narratives.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question for Daniel? We'll also quickly just check the live chat. No, there isn't any questions on YouTube. So I would like to thank you.
Yeah, there's one, Nicole.
There is one.
Yeah, Carla asked about how do you organize the work with your translators? And how could interested translators collaborate with you in your work? Wow. So I mentioned in our first issue, we launched a campaign for volunteer translation, which was great. It was fabulous. I mean, this was the only means we had at that time to publish a 4-language issue. But fortunately, this is not where we are now. And I'm a translator, with many of our colleagues are translators, and this journal only exists, and I'm sure to say that because we counted with excellent translators, not only translating, but also editing and thinking the whole platform as a whole. So we always have called this very this important challenge, which is to find native speakers, not in Portuguese, but towards Spanish, English, and French. So we know a lot of translators in Brazil, from all over Brazil. Now Zukiswa has introduced and made connections with Portuguese translators from the African continent. But we are always moving slowly when it comes to native translators of English, French, and Spanish, which is not a secret at all. But if there's anyone interested in participating of the translations, it's just a matter of emailing us, and it's more the possible path to join Periferias, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Nicole, can you send the audience our email?
Yeah. Another question from the audience. I will just read it out loud. I'd like to come back to the litafrika issue of Periferias. There are quite a few Lusophone writers represented, such as Ondiaki, Virgilia Ferrao, and Diara Monteiro. Were they already well known in Brazil before, or can they be discovered through the litafrika issue?
Well, Krista, I'm sure Ondiaki and Yara were well known in Brazil. Ondiaki lived in Rio for many years. So he's, thankfully, he's one of when we speak in Rio in Brazil about Ngala literature, he comes first place. And I think he has already published his books by different publishing houses in Brazil, which speaks a lot about his work. And also Yara, she has Essa Dama Bate Boé, published by Todavia in 2021. She came to São Paulo this year on the book festival of São Paulo held by magazine 451. So she's well known. But Virgilia Ferrão, I think people are getting to know her, which is fabulous. And also Ondiaki and Yara, I mean, they have a comprehensive literature work, the more they publish, the more they're going to get known. So yes, but still, I think, Krista, we have this opportunity to disseminate not only Portuguese-speaking authors, but of course, authors like Ishmael, like Abu Bakr, that I at least came to know because of litafrika. So I'm really happy. The story that I can tell this because this is my point of view. The story I must got cut off was not by Portuguese speaking author, but it was rather the excerpt from Abu Bakr. So when I read, when I could assimilate his story to what we know about Nigeria, that was really striking, and I'm sure to the Brazilian audience, these connections are going to be possible.
Just ask maybe one last time if there are any further questions. If not, I would highly recommend that you check out the platform Periferias. We have posted the link here in this chat. It's revistaperiferias.org. And there you can see all the beautiful issues. And again, I want to thank you, Daniel, for your presentation on Periferias, and thank the audience for participating.